Hi, welcome to Season 2, Episode 10 of The Weekly Wave. I'm Matthew Lyons.
And I'm Aaron Johnson.
And our very special guest here today is writer for Barstool Sports, Mr. Jerry Thornton. How are you?
Hey, man. Aaron, thanks for having me, fellas. It's a pleasure to make your acquaintance.
It's a pleasure to meet you, too.
So we had you today to come and talk about your book and a little bit of other stuff, working with Barstool and all your experiences. If for people who don't know at home, what is your book and what is it about?
Okay. I've written two. The first one was called From Darkness to Dynasty, and the reason I wrote it is not because people will bring you dump trucks filled with money when you write a book and men admire you and women want to be with you. I mean, that's my reality, but that's not why I wrote it. I wrote it because I always wanted to read this book, and the universe was taking its sweet time getting around to it. So I said, all right, the hell with it. I'll jump on the grenade, and I'll be the one to do it. It's basically for people who lived it, but for guys like your age who have grown up in an era where we finish one duck boat parade and we're setting up the sawhorses for the next one, and where Lombardi trophies are popping up out of the ground like summer corn or whatever, because the Patriots are hyper relevant. They are the middle of the sports universe, really, at a time when football is the middle of America's pop culture universe. And the Patriots are the biggest team on the field. They've dominated the news off the field. This book is not about those Patriots. It's about the ones I grew up on. I'm the youngest of five from Weymouth, so you'll have to talk slow because Abington. We used to vacation in Abington. That's how much we thought this was a cosmopolitan paradise. But yeah, it was like we loved the Patriots during a time when everyone else was about the Red Sox or the Larry Bird Celtics or whatever. And where I mentioned them being hyper relevant, then they were irrelevant.
Yeah, they were blacked out, right?
Home games weren't on TV. They were threatening to move all the time. I've been to games at the old stadium before Gillette was built where there were 25,000 people maybe there, and I was one of the 6 or 8 sober people because I was just a kid, and it was a breakdown of societal order to go to a game then. It was like Lord of the Flies with goalposts at either end. And then in this weird kind of metaphor, when they played the last game ever in the old stadium, that was actually the best game ever played in the stadium, the Snowball game.
Yeah.
Or as they call it in the rest of the country, the Tuck Rule game.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, it's like when you go down.
They never let that down.
Oh, yeah. Oh, it's like if you go down south and you mention the Civil War, someone will correct you and say, no, that's the War of Northern Aggression, Yankee. And that's how 46 states regard that game.
Yeah.
44 states. There's 6 New England states. Well, I count half of Connecticut and half of Vermont against as part of New York anyway. But, so I wouldn't have written the book if I didn't think it was funny. I mean, there's hilarious stuff that happened. There's tragedy in there, but I mean, they had a coach that one time being the Patriots coach literally drove him like nuts. He had a nervous breakdown from all the failure. Once they tore down the goalpost because the team made the playoffs, and fans were carrying it up Route 1. And if you know Route 1, you know that it's like liquor stores, parking lots, and low-hanging high-tension wires. And they found out what happens when thin-walled steel hits a high-tension wire, and guys got electrocuted and sued the town and the team, and they won millions of dollars.
Oh, my God.
Wow.
I don't know what part of them got burned, but I like to think that it was their reproductive system, so they won't have stupid children that will do idiotic things growing up. But yeah, I mean, one of the most famous games they ever had where they sent a John Deere tractor out onto the field to clear snow because no one could score points. It was like playing on a skating rink. And this thing like scraped down to the turf so the Patriots could kick a field goal and beat Don Shula's Dolphins by 3 points. And that was considered a great moment in team history. They went 6-10 that year. That stupid tractor is hanging from the roof of their the ceiling of the museum down at Foxborough, like it's the Wright brothers' plane or something. So it's this team that I fell in love with, like a stray dog that followed me home from school or whatever, with mange and 3 legs and 2 different colored eyes and stuff. Yeah. And I think it gives you an appreciation. Also, makes what we're witnessing now that much more fun and enjoyable.
Yeah. I was talking to someone earlier, and I said that you have become probably the most relatable writer I've ever read because the analogies that you use, they're so funny, And I normally am not the biggest sports guy, but I have been like glued to this book. It's so funny, and as you said, like if it wasn't in words and it didn't actually happen, you wouldn't believe it. I mean,
God.
like,
Wow, that's one of the nicest compliments I've ever gotten. Thank you, because I try to. Like I think sometimes I'm better at my job if I am not watching Sports Center, if I'm watching the History Channel, or you know what I mean, or Rick and Morty or something. You know what I mean? Because it gives me that. I try to put my worldview and my stupid cloistered existence as a C- student from Weymouth High School into what I write. So thanks. That means a lot to me.
yeah, it's fantastic. It really is.
Much appreciated. And it's available wherever fine books are sold and online.
Great shameless plug. Anyway, but I want to talk about how you got your start. So you started at Barstool Sports, which is now like a mega company amongst like teenagers and college students alike. But you were just with like 4 people and David Portnoy, right?
Yeah, the exact date is kind of lost to history. Somewhere someone has saved all the paper editions of Barstool, because that's where we began. That's what it was when I first found this pop-up ad. I was doing a little bit of writing from like my hometown paper that wasn't really satisfying. I did a lot of I've been doing stand-up, for 30 years almost, and did a lot of sports stuff, and that led to me getting on a Red Sox documentary that HBO put on called Curse of the Bambino that won an Emmy. But I knew that I wanted to write, and I found an ad for this site called Barstool Sports that was really a newspaper with just a message board attached, and it was in PDF format what little was online. So I contacted him, and he got back to me. His name was Dave Portnoy, and he says, send me a writing sample, and I did. And he got back to me right away and said, okay, you're in. It doesn't pay anything. I'm like, whatever. Okay, yeah, it's just for a creative outlet, and maybe it'll turn into grocery money someday. Maybe I can, little extra dough on the side like I get doing stand-up. And after a few months, I met him and started going to the parties that he was throwing, which, I was the older guy. Even then I had kids, And he invited me to come to one of the parties, and I was like, are you sure? Because I don't have a lot of gifts, but I was born with self-awareness, and I just don't want to be that guy, you know what I mean? Like
awkwardly standing in the corner. Like,
yeah, exactly. It's all these like attractive guys and and young girls, and I'm there wearing a members only jacket and like pleated khakis with a phone on my belt or whatever. Hello, fellow kids. But he insisted, and I went, and there was a whole community even then in this early days of people who just heard their own thoughts reflected in the writers that were there, and again formed that message board where they all became friends and went to the parties. And I kept thinking, maybe this will turn into something. And I didn't think I'd ever be able to leave my job for it. I was working for the state and had everything you could have, and union protection and benefits and dental and all that boring stuff. And if you would have told me back then that in 2020 I'd be working full-time for this guy, and the site would have just been valuated for $450 million.
That's crazy.
Yeah,
That just hasn't happened recently, right?
In the last couple of weeks, yeah. And I mean, it became a corporation, and but I think most importantly, we've kept really what we are. I think we're still true to ourselves. I still think it's our mission to make people laugh who are stuck in a job that they don't enjoy, where they're overworked and underpaid, or college kids sitting in a lecture hall like opening up their laptops. And I've had friends say this. My kid says his whole lecture hall is just people reading Barstool stuff while they should be studying. And that's our mission, really, is to make kids less educated. So yeah, keep on reading and buy all our T-shirts.
So you actually left Barstool for 2 years. What made you come back?
Okay. I was hoping to turn this into some sort of a full-time job in media once we really got big. Once I started getting regular guest spots on like radio stations and so on. And WEI came and they offered me a full-time job, like enough that I could actually leave working for the state and still have the benefits and all that other stuff and a nice bump in pay. And while I was at EEI, and I love that job, I mean, 4 hours a day, I just talked about stuff that is interesting to me, you know, and taking callers and doing remotes and meeting people and interviewing, you know, nationally famous athletes and coaches and whatever. And during that time, Barstool went from just Dave Portnoy owning it to this group, Churning Group, a big media conglomerate, like bought half interest in it. They had this famous press conference in Times Square and introduced Erica Nardini, who's our CEO. And I was proud of them. Like, I wasn't with them anymore, but I felt like some ownership in that.
Yeah.
I mean, you know, emotional ownership. I don't mean like, you know, where's my money, man? And so my contract was up with EEI, and they offered me an extension with a small pay raise, and I had stayed in touch with those guys, and David had me on his podcast or whatever. So I reached out to him and said, would you be interested in having me come back? And the negotiation took about 3 minutes. And he said, you're in. And so I told EEI thanks anyway. And, you know, the rest of them are down in New York. I work from my house in Massachusetts. I go down there once in a while. But they leave me to do what I do. And it seems to be working. I think it's a lot of people read us still. I tapped into a readership that's national and loyal as hell. And yeah, I love DEI, but this is not for 1 second have I regretted the decision.
Thank you.
Awesome. So, just as a news reporter and at your time at WEI, you met the likes of like Bill Belichick and Tom Brady. If you could interview one person, like obviously from like football, like maybe like a Joe Montana or like a Brett Favre, who would it be?
Roger Goodell.
Really?
Yeah, I would like to shake his hand and slam it down on the desk and then jab a knife into it and then tell him what I think of him, because his birth is the punishment for the sins of mankind.
Yeah.
He is an absolute demon, and I would love to tell him off and just tell him to never take that thin-lipped lie hole he calls a mouth and use it to form the name of Tom Brady, who he has tried to destroy.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Like Deflategate wasn't even proven. It was on an accusation. It was just terrible.
One of the things I'm most proud of is the Wells report came out minutes before we went on the air. We were live reading the pages as they came out of the printer, and the ink was still wet on them. And I read through this, and I said, this is nonsense. Like, there's nothing here. They spent months on this, and it's all gibberish. And, you know, when the story first broke, I was writing for EEIs.com, and I wrote the following. The very next day, I said, if this is the thing, if they're going to say that the Pats cheated and they've got the goods on Brady, I'm going to embrace it. Fine. You want us to be the wrestling villain? We'll be the wrestling villain. And as I said it, one of the guys on the EEI morning show said, if I'm a Patriots fan, if I'm Thornton, I'm embracing this right now. I said, okay, I've never once had to move off my spot. I took a position, and I turned out to be 100% vindicated. And now nobody will deny that it was nonsense from the beginning. So that, in a weird way, that has helped Patriots fans, I think. We're galvanized. We are unified behind this team. We're the most internet-savvy fan base in the world, and this is the reason we're not complacent even through all the successes, because idiots like Goodell come after us.
I did not expect that answer. That was a great answer.
Well, thanks. As someone who I would really like to talk to, you know what, Nick Saban. Like, I think I would thoroughly enjoy that, because
I mean, because like he has like the same mind as Belichick. I mean, if you already had Belichick, you gotta have Saban. You gotta like see what goes on inside their heads, because they're just masterminds.
Sure, and he's less guarded than Belichick, so I know more about how the Patriots scheme things and call things from watching Nick Saban coaching clinics on YouTube, because he's forthcoming in a way that Belichick is guarded. And those two, they share, if not a brain, they share like a feelings, I think, like Elliot and E.T. kind of. I think of like one of them gets scared, the other one jumps or whatever. And Belichick has been nothing but great to me. Oh my God! I mean, I was ready to take a bullet for the man before I met him. And my first day at EEI full time, sitting at a desk no bigger than this, and he's where you are, and I'm where I am. And he walked in, we're live on the air, and he says to my co-host, good to see you again, good to see you. And he turned to me and he said, and Jerry, it's an honor to finally meet you. That's a true story. I was like,
Wow.
it's like a little kid meeting mall Santa. I think I froze. I might have cried a little bit, but he's been nothing but great to me.
Yeah, that would have been like
That's awesome.
Darth Vader saying like, "I'm your father." Like that would just be like such a out of body experiences.
When I first got a copy of the book, my wife said, "You should bring him one. You should bring him one." I'm like, but what if he doesn't want it? What if it's awkward, And he came in from practice, and this will shock you, but he was kind of cranky that day.
Really?
Yeah,
Wow.
not many people know that sometimes he can be a little bit persnickety, and you can just tell he probably had a bad day of practice and he wasn't feeling it. And at the end, I gave him the book. I said, "Hey, you want this? You can have it. You're in it. Spoiler." And his whole mood changed. He's like, "Wow, that's terrific. Good for you. Like, congratulations." And I'm with my compliments. And he left the studio, and he came back 2 minutes later and said, "Jerry, can I bother you to sign this for me?
Wow.
Would you do that
What?
for me?" Oh my God, yeah. And he said, "I have to run off to a press conference. If you can sign it and bring it back, I'd appreciate it." Sure, no problem. And it's a good thing because my hand was like this. Like it would have been completely like chicken scratch. And I wrote, "Coach Belichick, thank you for saving my football team, Jerry." And he goes,
Nice.
Oh,
he's
awesome.
got a football collection like the Library of Alexandria, and somewhere in it, holding up a wobbly table is my book. But that's cool.
What's your writing process like? Do you just like come up with an idea? Do you force yourself to write?
I'm writing every day. That helps. I might take like a Saturday off if there's nothing going on, but it's laborious. I'm insane. Like I wish I could just write extemporaneously, but I'm constantly going back and rewriting things. And my number one priority is to be honest, first of all. But second is to write something in a way that other people aren't writing it. Like the first thing that pops into my head is always the cliche, and I will sit there for as long as it takes in order to find a way to phrase it in a way that somebody hasn't. And if all else fails, throw in a Star Wars reference, or hey, there's always
I love the
Game
Dark
of Thrones.
Knight quote. I sent a picture of it to Aaron.
Yeah.
And I'm like, this is now my favorite book ever.
Is it
Dark
the-
Knight is the greatest movie of all time.
Oh, it's fantastic. Is it the one you either die a hero or you live long enough to see yourself become the villain?
That's a great one, but the one that I sent the picture to was I'm a dog chasing cars. I wouldn't know what to do with one if I caught it. I just do things.
Yeah, that's fantastic. Okay, and you can always fall back on a why so serious or whatever.
Yeah.
But thank you for appreciating that. And it's it's also I make a lot of pop culture references. I had someone who used to email me regularly at my EEI account complaining that I used movie quotes too much. I'm like, it's the language that I talk.
It's so
that
relatable.
My
Yeah, it
friends talk. You know what I mean? Like my brother, who's okay at it, but he golfed with me and two other buddies of mine, and he said, I tried to not even talk because I couldn't keep up with you guys. I was like embarrassed about how little I knew about what you guys were saying. And when my kids were younger, one of them came home from the North End with his girlfriend. And he goes, "Hey, I stopped at the pastry place. I got some cannoli." And his little brother ran up the hall and said, "Leave the gun. Take the cannoli." He goes, "That's what I just said to my girlfriend in the car. My work here is done. I've achieved everything I wanted to as a father. You guys don't know how to open a checking account or change a tire, but by God, you can quote Godfather with the best of them."
Yeah. And then for my final question, I don't know about you, Matt. You've seen the Patriots at their low point, and you're seeing them at their best. The team that has won us so many championships, they're getting old. Brady's getting up there. Like the McCourtys, Edelman, they're all getting up there. How long do you see the dynasty lasting?
Okay, I don't. I'm not at all rejecting your question because it's valid and it's absolutely appropriate for 2020.
Yep.
People have been saying this in some other way, shape, or form probably since around 2006.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? It's always been that they're at the end of the line, and I have just continued to say, no, Belichick has a system. It will perpetuate itself. There was I know you guys love talking about French theologians from the 15th century, but Blaise Pascal had a thing he called Pascal's wager, which is he said, don't know if God exists or doesn't, but if I have faith in him and I'm wrong, well, it didn't cost me anything. Yeah. If I don't have faith in him and I'm wrong, well, I'm going to burn for eternity. Well, I've continued to believe in my deities, Belichick and Brady, and it's worked out pretty well. So I think Brady will be around till he's 45. Nothing's etched in stone, and he could easily leave, but I think it's, to steal a phrase, more probable than not that he's going to come back and still play at a high level. This was a team that was actually better last year than they were the year they won the Super Bowl. They messed up against Miami. They didn't make a stop. They gave up 100 fewer points this year than they did the year before. They went 12-4 as opposed to 11-5. They need to tweak. They need some tight end help. They could use another receiver. They need to re-sign some of their guys. I refuse to accept that because they got bounced by 1 point in a playoff game that it's the end of days. Yeah. It's a long answer, I know. I'm sorry.
No, good answer. For my last question, I just want to know, as a sports writer, you said you write every day. Does being such an avid writer, does that take away from just watching and enjoying a game?
Yes and no, but it's because the great thing about being at Barstool is we write what we believe. We come from the point of view of we are fans. Early on when I started, I had a professional football writer say to me, I envy you, because this is fun for you. You enjoy this. He goes, I don't care. I don't care who wins or loses. I just want a good story. And my first thought was, if that ever becomes me, just smother me with a pillow. Just let me go painlessly, because I don't want that. But then there's times when the teams I care about lose in agonizing fashion, and I have to face the music. That's where it's hard. Yeah. This past Super Bowl, I took it as a chance to I get to have fun, just like a real boy, because I didn't have any emotional investment. It wasn't like, oh God, now I have to write about this. It's I care too much. So I was had a party and said, let's talk during the game and be quiet during the commercials, and look, oh, hey, there's Mr. Peanut. He's a baby now, or whatever, and it was enjoyable. But after the Pats lost the 18-1 game, the gold standard for bad losses. Yeah. The next day, I went to a matinee with my wife. We saw Cloverfield, which I wanted to see just because I was in the mood to watch New York get torn to shreds by a giant monster. And when I got back on the stool to say, okay, now I got to face the music, everyone had been ending their blogs with, P.S. I think Jerry is dead. And I owned it. So I'd rather be doing that than anything in the world. I'd rather be not an insider, but on the sitting on the first row of the outside, enjoying this. So I have to think more when I'm watching a game, but it's the stuff I want to think about. You know, it's not like I'm having to cover the impeachment or something like that would make me want to just jump off a bridge. So it's a blessing. I try to earn it every day. I appreciate how lucky I am. And if you ever told me this is where I'd be in 2020, I would have said, are you sure I didn't bump my head in 2001 and I've hallucinated the last 19 years? But this is it. This is reality, right?
Yeah.
Thank you so much.
Cheers.
This was a great
wonderful
interview.
show.
Oh, it was my pleasure, guys. Go Green Wave, unless you're playing Weymouth, and then you guys go ahead and win. What have they done for me?
Thanks for watching. Tune in Friday for a brand new episode of Guessing It.
Make sure to follow us on our Twitter, Instagram, Facebook, and YouTube at the Green Wave Gazette.
Thanks for watching.
Goodbye.